should do and doing male activities that really promote manhood in our young boys nowadays. And just something that just really bothers me. And coaches nowadays that really teach kids that, you know, losing's okay. You got to be a good sport about losing, what you do. But if they don't really put an importance on winning the game, maybe at a younger level, you know, t-ball, 5, 6, 7 year olds, shouldn't really push that issue too much. But if you kind of keep throughout their little league careers and into their teens, if you keep, telling these kids it's okay to lose, they're going to lose their passion for playing the sport, and they're really going to have no competitive spirit because they're not really going to care if they win or lose, and if they keep getting rewarded for winning. I'm going to kind of tie that in with socialism. It's kind of like a far-fetched, but not really, because, kids are, even if they do fail, they're still going to get a trophy or get a party. And it's kind of like how in America today, when you could fail as an individual and you could be lazy about it and not really go out and try to find a job, and you're just going to sit home and bum on the government or get, welfare, food stamps. And I see cases every day when people live in these, wrecked houses with illegitimate kids and just driving Escalades and having the newest cell phones. And it's really sickening how, people really rely on the government instead of, working hard. And I feel that really starts with our children and how we're breeding our young males to not, work hard, and the video games, and just teaching our young kids that it's not really important to be a man anymore, and like being sissies and really not standing up for what's right and supporting their families when they do have one in their 20s or 30s, or whenever people decide to have kids. But I'm going to kind of get into more of that with my part 3, which is talking about sports. Part 4 is another thing. My mom's a teacher, and I know a bunch of girls I graduated with here recently are teachers, and they're really underappreciated for the things they do. And I'm going to really get in. This is probably going to be one of my longer ones. I feel pretty passionate about, because, again, my mom's a teacher, and a lot of my friends that I know now are teachers. But as far as, how our schooling system in America is really, babying kids and creating a level playing field for our children. And even though it's good, to have a positive impact on maybe those who might not, learn at a faster pace, but when kids get promoted to grades, to the next grade, and they're not really ready to be there, you're just setting that kid up for failure. And instead of worrying about, hurting his feelings and keeping him in a grade next year so we can develop, the mental capacity and, what he needs to do to really excel at that next grade, you kind of pass him on with the crowd and kind of hope he, just makes it, instead of really focusing on those children. And as far as, I'm not really hugely supportive of this because of how, I don't know how I feel if a principal is spanking my kid, because I feel like that is the job of the parents, and I'll get to that on my next part. But as far as, kids, no discipline in schools. Now, I've come to my mom's classroom sometimes, and, kids have no manners. They're not really raised right in the family, and they have no respect for authority, and they could care less really what a teacher says. And, for example, at my mom's school, across the board, if the principal, if they send a kid to the principal's office for being disruptive or, saying something they probably shouldn't have said or making a threat to another student, the principal gives them a Pop-Tart and sends them back to class. I'm not even kidding with you. I have multiple witnesses that this has happened at this school. A kid was giving a Pop-Tart, and this happens often. If, they send a kid trying to get punished, kids don't fear going to the office anymore in elementary and middle schools. When I was a kid and I was going through, elementary school, middle school, even high school, I was terrified to have to go to the office for anything, because I knew, I was going to get in trouble at school, and then I was scared to come home because I knew I was going to be in double trouble once I got home. But nowadays, there's no really accountability, and parents aren't keeping their kids accountable. And that's what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to elaborate a little more on how, teachers are underappreciated and the kids are lacking manners in schools. But I'm going to kind of discuss more of the family issue in my part 6 on this series about America's children, and how kids are being raised, and how like fast food and child obesity is really taking over, and how parents are, taking their kids out. And a big thing that I know a lot of families don't do anymore, and it's really, really good as America as a whole, is for families to sit down and eat together as a family for dinner. And nobody does that anymore, and it's not really portrayed. I know in older movies and older shows, it always showed that family as a unit, and sitting down dinner, discussing each other's days, how everything went. And I know that's a lot of families, probably less than half of America's families nowadays, do not sit down at a table and eat dinner. It's either sitting in front of a TV, or somebody doesn't want to eat, or you're sitting in front on the couch, just everybody's watching TV. There's no communication and no like family building within those times. Another thing is I'm going to talk about in part 5 is kids not getting spanked anymore. And I know when I was a kid, I got spanked. It was fine because I knew that I had messed up and I didn't do the right thing, and I knew if I had messed up again, I would get another spanking. But so it deterred that bad behavior. And I also, the same thing when I was getting in trouble in school, I knew I was going to get a spanking when I got home. So I definitely strayed away from doing that. But that's another thing. Kids nowadays aren't being disciplined at home. And when they're getting sent to school or even sent to other people's houses, they have no manners. They just help themselves to things that aren't theirs. And I really think we need to get back to that as far as raising our kids. And I'm going to discuss that pretty heavily in part 5. It's going to be about family and eating habits with America's children and how kids are being raised at home. And part 6 is kind of something that's really been developing here the past 10 years. And it's going to be about bankrupting our future generations before they're even born. And like I know my kids and grandkids, before they're even brought into this world, they're already in debt right out the womb. And even this next generation, coming in, all that I'm going to really discuss about how, this universal health care program, this administration, the stimulus bills that are just being put into these corporations, and the corporations are really taking this money and not giving it to the lower end employees, the minimum wage employees that really need the help and supporting their families that are working hard. They're just taking the stimulus money and putting it back into the politicians' pockets for their campaign elections that they gave to the corporations. So it's kind of just a big wheel that nobody's really benefiting from these except, the politicians and the big time, the corporate office people, which is a shame. And America needs to really put this out there and really stand up against this kind of action and really put it out there in the news. And I just feel like a lot of news agencies or networks don't cover stuff like this because for whatever reason, I really don't know. But a couple books that I've been reading and really would like to kind of talk about briefly, which is kind of where I got my idea for kind of starting something like this. And